In a quiet little village at the edge of a silver-blue forest, there lived a tiny kitten named Whiskers. Her fur was soft as cloud fluff, her paws small and careful, and her eyes round and bright like lanterns. Every evening, she would sit by the wooden fence in her yard, gazing at the glowing moon above. To Whiskers, the moon wasn't just light in the sky. It was a friend, a gentle guardian watching her fall asleep each night. She often whispered, "One day, I'll find you, moon. I'll touch your light." That evening, a soft drizzle had just ended, leaving the air cool and sweet, with the scent of rain still clinging to the grass. The stars began blinking awake, and the moon peeked out from behind a veil of drifting clouds. Whiskers' tiny heart filled with wonder. She stretched her little legs, gave a curious flick of her tail, and decided tonight would be different. Tonight, she would begin her adventure to find the moon. The village had grown quiet, its lamps glowing golden in the windows, the last hums of people settling down for the night. But Whiskers, guided by the shimmer above, padded softly down the cobblestone path that led out of the village. Her paws barely made a sound, only the rhythm of her tiny steps and the soft sigh of the wind carried her forward. She felt nervous but excited, her heart beating faster than usual, the way it does when dreams begin to turn real. She walked past tall sunflowers nodding in the moonlight, their petals still damp from the rain. Fireflies sparkled between them, floating like tiny lanterns themselves, as if to show her the way. "Little lights, are you the moon's helpers?" she asked softly. The fireflies danced around her Whiskers, glowing brighter for a moment, then darting off toward the forest's edge. Whiskers followed eagerly, believing each step brought her closer to her glowing friend in the sky. When she reached the entrance of the forest, the air grew hushed, as if the trees themselves were listening. Tall pines stretched high above, their branches weaving into shadows, but a path lay before her, a path lined with moss that glimmered faintly silver under the moonlight. Whiskers felt her paws sink into the softness of the moss as though it were welcoming her. The forest was quiet, yet alive, the rustle of leaves, the distant croak of a frog near a stream, the gentle drip of rain from branches. Every sound seemed to sing, "Follow the moon, little one." Whiskers took a deep breath, her tiny nose twitching at the smell of damp bark and earth. She wasn't afraid, not with the moon above her and the fireflies still twinkling nearby. Her tail flicked with determination as she ventured further inside, deeper than she had ever dared go before. Each step echoed with a sense of promise, a promise that this night held magic she had only ever dreamed of. As she padded further, she saw the first sign that her journey was truly enchanted, a pool of water so still it looked like glass. When Whiskers leaned over it, her reflection shimmered, but beside her own little face, she saw the moon's glowing reflection too. She reached her paw out gently, dipping it into the water. Ripples spread across the surface, and it almost looked as if the moon itself was smiling back at her. Whiskers' heart leapt. "Moon, I'm coming," she whispered. And with that, her adventure truly began. Whiskers stepped carefully away from the shimmering pool, her paw still damp with the moon's reflection. The fireflies darted ahead like tiny lanterns, and she followed them deeper into the forest. The night air was cooler here, wrapped in the smell of moss and pine, and the path seemed endless yet inviting, as if the forest itself wanted to carry her towards something magical. The deeper she walked, the more the forest began to change. Vines glowed faintly, curling around tree trunks like emerald ribbons. Mushrooms glimmered softly in pale blues and greens, forming clusters that looked like scattered stars on the ground. Whiskers blinked in wonder. She had never seen anything like it. Her whiskers quivered with excitement as she whispered, "Maybe I'm already halfway to the moon." Suddenly, a gentle rustle caught her attention. Out from a hollow log crawled a hedgehog, his little spines catching the moonlight like silver pins. He carried a small satchel tied around his middle, and when he saw Whiskers, he gave her a slow, curious nod. "Traveling late, little kitten?" he asked in a voice that was warm and steady. Whiskers nodded eagerly. "I'm trying to find the moon." "Do you know where it lives?" The hedgehog chuckled softly, his eyes kind but wise. "The moon doesn't live in one place, dear. It follows those who dream bravely enough to walk toward it." But, he opened his satchel and pulled out a tiny acorn lantern, glowing softly. "You'll need light to guide you. The forest grows darker the further you go." Whiskers accepted the lantern, holding its handle gently between her teeth. It cast a soft golden glow, warm against the silver of the moonlight. "Thank you," she purred, her little voice full of gratitude. The hedgehog bowed, then waddled back into his hollow, leaving Whiskers with the tiny treasure to help her along the way. With the lantern swaying gently, she pressed on. The path wound uphill, and the trees seemed to lean closer together. Shadows deepened, yet the little lantern kept her safe, casting away the gloom. The fireflies returned, circling her playfully before disappearing ahead again, as if to say, "Come along, we're not done yet." As she climbed higher, Whiskers began to notice the forest humming. It wasn't just the rustle of leaves or the chirp of crickets. It was softer, almost like a lullaby woven into the night. The melody wrapped around her, easing her tiny paws even as they grew tired. She slowed down and listened closely, realizing the sound came from a grove just ahead. Peeking through the trees, she gasped. In the middle of the clearing was a family of rabbits, their ears long and glowing faintly under the moonlight. They sat in a circle, humming together as though they were singing to the stars. At the center of their circle was a bowl of dewdrops, sparkling like liquid diamonds. Each rabbit dipped its paw in, then touched the ground, leaving tiny glowing prints that shimmered before fading away. Whiskers stepped closer, her eyes wide with awe. The rabbits paused their humming and looked at her kindly. One of the smallest rabbits hopped forward, its nose twitching. "Are you chasing the moon, little kitten?" Whiskers nodded shyly, setting down her lantern. "I want to find it. I want to touch its light." The rabbits smiled as if they had heard those words before. The elder rabbit, with fur silver as frost, spoke gently, "The moon listens to those who believe. Follow your paw prints, and they will guide you closer." The smallest rabbit dipped its paw into the dewdrop bowl and touched Whiskers' little paw. Instantly, her paw glowed faintly. She gasped and lifted it, seeing light shimmer in her steps as she pressed it back to the moss. Each footprint now left a faint trail of silver, glowing softly in the night. "Now," the elder rabbit said, "wherever you walk, the moon will know you are coming." Whiskers' heart felt warm and brave. She bowed her head to the rabbits, whispering thank you before picking up her lantern and continuing along the path. With each step, her glowing paw prints lit the way behind her, as if she was already leaving a path for the moon to follow. The climb grew steeper, and the trees parted little by little, revealing more of the open sky. The moon looked closer now, larger, brighter, as though it too was leaning forward, waiting for her. Whiskers' paws tingled with excitement, her whiskers twitching with determination. She didn't know what waited at the top of the hill. All she knew was that with every glowing step, she felt closer, not just to the moon, but to something magical she had always believed in. And so, with her lantern glowing, her paw prints shimmering, and the moon watching from above, Whiskers pressed on, her little heart ready for whatever awaited next in her enchanted journey. Whiskers climbed higher, her glowing paw prints scattering like little pearls behind her. The trees thinned until only starlight and the round, silvery moon above guided her way. The air felt lighter, crisper, and full of whispers, as though the forest itself held its breath, waiting for her to take the next step. At last, she reached the top of the hill, and her tiny heart fluttered. Before her stretched a meadow unlike anything she had ever seen. The grass was pale silver, swaying as if painted by moonlight, and flowers bloomed in every shade of blue and violet. Each petal seemed to catch the starlight, glowing faintly. In the middle of the meadow stood a tall stone arch, half covered in vines, shimmering faintly as though it was alive. Whiskers padded closer, her lantern swinging gently at her side. She paused to sniff the air, it smelled sweet, like honey and rain. As she touched her paw to the glowing grass, the entire meadow lit up brighter, as though welcoming her. Then, just as she reached the arch, the air stirred. From the shadows came a tall, graceful figure with feathers soft as velvet and eyes glowing gold. It was an owl, older than time itself, perched atop the stone arch. His wings stretched wide, scattering stars like sparks. His voice was deep and steady, like thunder muffled by clouds. "Little kitten," he said, "you carry the lantern of the hedgehog and the prince of the rabbits. Few have walked this far. Why do you seek the moon?" Whiskers felt her chest rise with courage. She tilted her head up, her eyes shining. "Because I believe in it. I've always watched it from the ground, wishing I could be close. I want to know if it's real enough to touch." The owl's gaze softened. "The moon is more than light. It is a friend to all who wander. But only those with a true heart can step closer." He gestured with a wing toward the arch. "Beyond this gate is the moon's path. Walk it carefully, and remember, what you carry in your heart is what the moon will show you." With trembling paws, Whiskers stepped through the arch. At once, the world shifted. The silver meadow faded, replaced by a glowing bridge made entirely of light, stretching up toward the sky. Stars swirled all around, sparkling like diamonds scattered across an endless sea. The bridge seemed fragile, but her glowing paw prints left steady steps as she moved forward. Every step filled Whiskers with awe. She glanced down once and gasped. Below her was the forest she had just left, tiny and distant, like a picture painted far beneath. The fireflies followed her still, glowing brighter as if cheering her on. Her lantern swung at her side, and together, the light grew stronger, blending with the moon's glow above. She walked until her little paws began to ache, but she didn't stop. The moon grew larger, closer, until it filled the sky like a gentle guardian. At last, she reached the end of the glowing bridge, and there, waiting on a silver pedestal, was a bowl made of pure moonlight. It shimmered with liquid silver, rippling like water though no wind touched it. Whiskers leaned forward, her reflection glowing in the bowl. She saw herself, small, curious, brave. She touched the surface with one paw, and instantly the silver rippled outward. A soft warmth spread through her, filling her chest, wrapping her in peace. And then she heard it. A voice, soft and kind, like the sound of a lullaby whispered by the night. "Little one," the moon spoke, "you have found me not by chasing, but by believing. I am always here, watching, waiting for hearts like yours to walk toward me. Whenever you feel alone, look up, and you will know you are never forgotten." Whiskers' eyes glistened. She pressed her tiny paw deeper into the light, and when she pulled it away, the glow stayed on her fur, faint but real. She had touched the moon. She had found her dream. And with that, the glowing bridge began to carry her gently back, her heart full of a quiet joy. As Whiskers stepped back through the glowing arch, the meadow welcomed her with a shimmer of light. But something inside her had changed. Her fur glowed faintly silver now, as if the moon had brushed her with its own hand. The little lantern she carried no longer flickered softly, but shone with a steady, gentle glow, brighter than before. The silver grass whispered around her paws, and the flowers seemed to bow toward her as she walked. Whiskers paused, glancing back at the arch, which now stood quiet and still, the owl's shadow gone. She felt as though she had been entrusted with a secret far too big for such a small kitten. Yet, instead of fear, she felt peace, as though the moon's words had curled around her heart like a blanket. She padded slowly down the hillside, her paw prints glowing faintly behind her, guiding her like a trail of stars. The fireflies that had once followed her now danced ahead, circling like a crown of golden sparks above her head. The forest welcomed her with warm shadows and the rustling of leaves. But this time, Whiskers didn't feel like a wanderer, she felt like a friend of the night itself. Along the path, she met the rabbits again, the ones who had shown her the glowing prints. They tilted their ears curiously, their eyes wide. "You've been to the moon's bridge," they whispered in hushed voices. Whiskers nodded, and her lantern glowed brighter in response. The rabbits bowed their heads and hopped aside, letting her pass with quiet respect. Not far ahead, the hedgehog peeked from beneath the roots of an oak tree. His tiny lantern still glowed faintly, but when he saw Whiskers' silver-touched fur, his mouth fell open. "You carried it well," he murmured softly. "And the moon's gift rests with you now." Whiskers lowered her head, grateful. She nudged his lantern gently, and for a moment, both lights glowed together before parting. Even the birds, resting on branches, stirred as she walked by. Their soft feathers rustled, and one or two let out a low, musical call, like lullabies drifting through the branches. The forest seemed changed, or perhaps Whiskers had changed, and now she could hear the songs it had always sung. She wandered back to her favorite patch of moss near the stream, where she had so often sat and stared up at the night sky, wondering what it would be like to touch the moon. Tonight, she lay down on the soft moss, her lantern by her side, glowing faintly like a second star. She gazed up at the sky, the moon shining full and proud, and her heart felt warm, steady, and safe. And then something extraordinary happened. A ripple of light shimmered across the surface of the stream. The moon's reflection appeared brighter than ever, almost alive. Whiskers leaned close, and in the water, the moon's reflection winked, as if to remind her, "I am here. Always." Whiskers purred, curling herself into a ball. Her silver glow softened, wrapping around her like a gentle blanket. The night hummed with quiet music, leaves, crickets, water, all singing the same lullaby. For the first time, Whiskers closed her eyes not with longing, but with contentment. She no longer needed to wonder if the moon was too far away. She had carried its light home with her. And as sleep slowly wrapped its arms around her, the moon hung high above, keeping watch, making sure the little kitten's dreams were always bright. In the quiet days that followed her return, Whiskers noticed something unusual happening in the forest. Her lantern glowed brighter whenever she was near others, and the silver shimmer in her fur seemed to awaken something gentle in every creature she met. One morning, as she padded down to the stream for a drink, she found a group of tiny field mice gathered at the bank. They looked worried, the current was too strong, and they couldn't cross to the berry patch on the other side. Whiskers set her lantern down, and to her surprise, the glow stretched across the water like a soft, silver bridge. The mice gasped, then carefully tiptoed across the shimmering path, their tiny paws steady and sure. When they reached the other side, they turned back and squeaked their thanks, their little tails flicking happily. Whiskers purred, realizing her gift could help more than just herself. That evening, as the sun dipped low, the rabbits appeared again, this time with their little ones hopping timidly behind. "They're afraid of the dark," the oldest rabbit explained. Whiskers lowered her lantern, and its soft glow spread across the meadow. The little rabbits blinked, then bounded forward into the light, laughing and playing. Their fear faded, replaced by the joy of chasing fireflies. The parents nodded gratefully to Whiskers, and she felt her heart swell with quiet pride. Word spread quickly through the forest. Soon, birds with tired wings began following Whiskers' light at night, using it to guide them safely back to their nests. The hedgehog, too, brought his lantern to sit beside hers, the two lights glowing brighter together as a symbol of trust and friendship. Even the fox, who usually prowled silently at dusk, approached with cautious respect, lying down nearby as though drawn by the warmth. The forest itself seemed to change. Where Whiskers walked, flowers opened their petals even in the dark, and the air smelled sweeter. Crickets chirped in harmony with her purring, and the stars overhead twinkled as though they recognized her as one of their own. The animals began to gather each night where Whiskers rested, forming a circle of peace under the moon. Some whispered stories, others sang, and together they created a rhythm of comfort that spread through the forest like a lullaby. But most magical of all was what happened one cloudy night, when the moon was hidden. The forest grew uneasy without its familiar glow. Yet Whiskers stepped forward, lifted her lantern, and the silver light bloomed so brightly it painted the treetops and streams in a gentle glow. The animals gasped in wonder, then relaxed, realizing they didn't have to fear the darkness. Whiskers had brought a piece of the moon to them. From that night on, whenever shadows felt too heavy or paths too long, the forest animals would say softly, "Follow the kitten who carries the moon." Whiskers never bragged, never demanded praise. She simply shared her light, curling up with her lantern close, happy that her small journey had given warmth and courage to all who needed it. The gift was not just hers anymore, it belonged to the whole forest. And Whiskers understood now what the moon had meant: a little light, shared freely, could brighten an entire world. Under the silver hush of night, Whiskers curled up near her glowing lantern, the forest gathered softly around her. The mice snuggled close in the grass, the rabbits leaned against one another, and even the birds tucked their wings and settled near her paws. A quiet firefly drifted above her, blinking as though it wanted to join the circle of light. Whiskers' eyes grew heavy, but her heart was calm. She remembered her very first steps under the moon, how uncertain she had felt, and how far she had come since then. She had carried her lantern through streams, meadows, and shadowed woods, never realizing it wasn't just her own path she was lighting, it was everyone else's too. The night grew deeper, and clouds began to cover the sky. For a moment, the moon disappeared, and the forest hushed in nervous silence. Then Whiskers' lantern shimmered, brighter than ever before. The glow reached the treetops, bounced along the river, and wrapped the animals in a blanket of warmth. The little ones pressed closer, sighing as their fears melted away. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and Whiskers lifted her head. Above the clouds, she glimpsed the moon's face shining faintly, as if smiling down at her. And in that quiet moment, she felt the moon whisper again, "You have become the light others look for." Whiskers purred softly, curling her tail around the lantern. She no longer wondered if she was too small or if her light was enough. She knew, deep in her heart, that her glow was exactly what the forest needed. One by one, the animals closed their eyes, breathing slowly, safe within the silver glow. The crickets played their lullaby, the leaves swayed like a gentle song, and the firefly hovered above Whiskers' lantern as if guarding her dreams. Soon, the forest itself seemed to fall asleep, wrapped in peace and moonlight. Whiskers drifted into slumber, her lantern steady and calm beside her. And though her eyes were closed, the glow never dimmed. It shone softly through the night, guiding dreams and keeping the forest safe until morning. And so, whenever the moon was hidden and the stars felt far away, the forest creatures whispered to one another before closing their eyes, "Don't worry. The kitten who carries the moonlight is here."